Hello and welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. Hope you guys are all doing well. We've got a fantastic show on the way. But first, I just want to say thanks to NORD VPN, our sponsors here at the Everything is Black and White podcast, who without none of this would be possible. And we've teamed up with them to offer our listeners and viewers an exclusive offer. You can click the link in the podcast description box or go to nordvpn.com/tune to sign up and save your pennies on a plan. It is well worth your time to sign up. You are secure, you are safe, and you're supporting the podcast. Why sign up? I hear you ask. Well, there are a host of benefits. For me, it is the value for money because one subscription can be used across 10 devices. That's your work phone, your personal phone, your tablet, what have you. 10 devices, one subscription. I mean, that is the definition of value for money. The other thing I love about it as well is the way that it keeps your details safe and secure when browsing on public Wi-Fi. So if you're on the bus, the train, you're in a cafe and you're connected to their Wi-Fi, there is always the risk that your details could be compromised. That's your bank details, your passwords, and a load of other stuff as well. But with Nord, you are safe and you are secure. And that for me means a heck of a lot. And look, if you're going abroad as well and you're missing your home comforts and you want to keep with it with all your UK streaming services, then you can click the location back to the UK and make sure you never miss your favorite program. What is not to love about it? It's absolutely fantastic. Very simple to get on board. You download the app, you sign up, and away you go. You're keeping yourself safe, you're keeping yourself secure, and you're supporting the podcast at the same time. And another benefit, and I've already mentioned three, and there are a host of other things to mention as well if we had the time. But the final thing I'm going to mention is a 30-day money-back guarantee. So it's literally no risk. If you don't like it, get your money back. But you will like it because it's a superb app to have on your phone. Keeps you safe, keeps you secure. And once again, you're supporting the podcast. So click the link or go to nordvpn.com/tune to take advantage of an exclusive offer for our listeners and viewers of the Everything is Black and White podcast. Roll the titles. Hello and welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. I'm Andrew Musgrove and I'm joined by Dan Rolinson from the Claret and Blue Podcast for the second time in a week. You lucky people. Obviously, Dan was on last week doing the view from the opposition as Newcastle travelled down to the Villa Park in a game that ended 0-0. This week, he is on, as promised, to talk all about Jacob Ramsey. We've had loads of questions sent in via email and on social media from you guys who are watching and listening to put to Dan. But he's kindly going to come and give some insight into who Newcastle United have signed. First things first, though, Dan, what did you make of that 0-0 draw on Saturday?
I mean, this is the third time now I've spoken about this on a podcast, so I'm really on the edge of, I'm really bored of talking about it. Just nothing to say. I saw Villa posted a 2-minute highlight package at 10 p.m. on Saturday night, and I was like, I'm amazed they've even got to 2 minutes of highlights. Just a really non-event, I guess, from both sides, really. I thought it was a pretty poor game. I think if Isak plays, you win, and that's probably very frustrating for your guys. A game just kind of lacking any kind of quality and really shows Villa are quite short still. And we've done so much talk about the kind of financial restrictions, the fact that we've sold Ramsey to you and Villa are saying, look, don't kind of have big expectations here. We aren't going to be reinvesting that money heavily is a concern because we do look light. Now, that's not to say Villa don't sign anybody, but it's probably loans or free transfers, and that's a lesser expectation than going to just spend 50 million on somebody that's good, right? So, yeah, a real frustration. And I think for Villa fans, and I won't speak for all of them, obviously, the final day of last season was bad. Should have beat United, would have got in the Champions League. The summer's been poor, and the first game of the season was poor. It's all just a bit, this doesn't feel great.
Well, it's probably down to the good old PSR in many ways. That's probably another episode we could film maybe when the transfer window is shut. Have a bit of a moan about that.
My third episode in as many weeks. Bloody hell.
It's gone down very well. You mentioned there lack of quality. If Jacob Ramsey was still at Villa, or if indeed he'd been signed prior to the deadline to be registered, would he have been a player you think could have changed the game for either side?
Possibly. It's hard to say. I mean, would he have played in your front three, maybe. Would he have played on the left instead of Barnes? Probably, actually. I think he would have started if he'd have signed a couple of weeks prior. For Villa, he would have been in my kind of best 11, starting 11 for the first game of the season. Not because I think he's this amazing player. I just don't think we have that many creative options. So you've got Rodgers and McGinn and Marlon and Gesson, and we Villa have options to a degree, but not ones that we know what to expect from them just yet. For example, Emi Buendia had a great pre-season. All right, so what? What does that mean? You've got to do it in the Premier League. And yeah, the red card probably changes it from Emery's perspective, but Buendia doesn't get on the pitch. Gesson doesn't get on the pitch. Marlon gets 5 minutes at the end. Like, what are we trying to do here? What's the expectation? So does Ramsey start off the left? Probably. Yeah, I think so for Villa, if he obviously was still with us and had no intention of leaving. But does he change the game from a draw to a win? I don't know. Probably not, to be honest.
Hard to say, isn't it? I have to say, I'm feeling a marked difference in your mood from when we spoke last week to how you're feeling now. Is that
I thought we'd win, so yeah.
On Ramsey, then, tell us how you're feeling, because again, last week when you were on the show, you said you were okay with it. You weren't, too fussed. You were maybe a little bit sad to see him go, but you weren't crying yourself to sleep at night. Now you've seen him in black and white. Has that changed slightly?
Not particularly. We did our Q&A yesterday, and I asked that exact same question to John because he'd not spoken about it since last week. And it does feel a little bit different when you actually see all the media, the videos and whatnot of him in another club shirt. It does feel a little bit odd. It's kind of the same as when we saw Grealish in Man City blue for the first time. It was like, it just doesn't look right. You suit Claret and Blue, mate. What's going on here? The J Ramsey 41 in another club's font on the back. It just looks slightly strange. So yeah, a little bit of a difference of emotion, but for me, again, that's a very short-lived thing. Was it Sunday night, the official confirmation? It was like, oh, there it is. Okay, like it feels weird now, but I'm over it kind of pretty quickly again. So I think I'm still fine with the transfer. I think Villa will be fine. It doesn't change my kind of season prediction of what I expect Villa to do. I still think by the end of the window, Villa will sign at least one forward option, if not two. Again, that might be 2 loans. But as we've discussed a little bit last week, and I'm sure we will in this, Ramsey's output specifically won't be hard to replace. Now, his game doesn't just boil down to goals and assists, but he's a forward player playing on the left wing. You want them to chip in. So if Villa sign a loanee, yeah, it's very short term. But if they score 5 goals, that's more than Ramsey scored in the last 2 seasons. So theoretically, Villa are better. But would I right now like to have him as an option? Yeah, absolutely, because we don't have loads. But I think by October, November, when Villa hopefully have clicked into gear, I'm not going to be thinking, I wish we had Jacob Ramsey in this team.
Have Newcastle overpaid from the whole package is going to go to probably the mid 40 million if everything is hit with the add-ons and what have you? What do you make of the price tag?
What do you make of the harder to achieve add-ons? What does that mean?
Well, Newcastle have done this with a few deals. Reported, I think the Elanga deal has also got something that people have called hard to hit add-ons. I mean, goodness knows what it's going to be. I can't imagine it's anything like Newcastle win the Premier League title or Champions League, because which club would be stupid enough to agree to that?
Yeah.
So like you, I am very intrigued, and we don't know what it was in the Elanga deal. We don't know what it is in this deal. I do think, though, the initial 38, 39, 40 million is it's a big price tag.
Yeah.
But Newcastle, their scouting staff, Eddie Howe, have proven in the last few windows, since the takeover, that they know what they're doing, and they've got very little, if anything, wrong at all in the transfer window. So they've got enough credit in the bank where you go, you know what, we're backing the manager. Is he someone that I'd want to spend £40 million on looking at his stats? No, I have to be honest. I have been impressed with little bits of his game, but I do think it's a big, big price tag. But it is just the way of the market, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just, this is what players are costing these days. I mean, you guys must be rubbing your hands, though, at the thought of pure profit of 40 million quid.
Oh, we can't spend it, so it doesn't really matter to me. That's the extra frustration. Like, there's one thing being annoyed about losing a homegrown talent, but if that comes with a caveat, and we've been told for however many years now, pure profit, guys, that's a great thing, right? Sell your homegrown talent because that will help you. Oh, but by the way, not you, Aston Villa, you're not allowed to spend it. How dare you? So we've banked the pure profit. Okay, that's good. If you can't reinvest it, that's bad, right? Surely I thought this was going to kind of unlock the door a little bit for Villa, that you can amortise the contracts. We've got 40 million to play with. If you sign if you sign 4 players for 50 million each over a 5-year contract, that's 10 million per year. You can do that 4 times theoretically. And I'm not expecting Villa to spend, and I wasn't, 200 million. But that wiggle room surely allows you to do that. Oh no, your hands are still tied. You can't do that. So that's a real frustration. However, in the short term, can we replace Ramsey's output with a loan? Probably, yeah, and that remains to be seen. In terms of the price tag, I am with you. If he wasn't a Villa boy and we were signing this guy from Brighton, I'd be kind of hesitant to, is he worth 40? Like, I'm not sure he's worth that. But then you see much lesser players now be worth about 20. So I kind of feel like 5 or 6 years ago, those £20 million players were probably 10. And these £40 million players were probably about 25. And I'd say that is about the kind of market value for Ramsey 10 years ago, kind of 25 million-ish. So if that's 40 now, fine. But output is still the thing for me. Like, if you're signing him, and he might be better for you than he was for Villa, obviously that's what you hope. But if at the end of the season, your 40 million has got you 3 or 4 goals, you kind of question, was that worth it? And I know that his game is more than that and should be more than that, but you still want them to contribute if they're playing enough minutes.
Oh, most certainly so. I think the one transfer I look at, which you can kind of compare the price tags, is that one of Dango Atara to Brentford from Bournemouth. Now, he's played 81 times, 9 goals, 9 assists, and he's cost him 42.5 million quid. Jacob Ramsey, 136, 14 goals, 12 assists. So I know their return's not too dissimilar. But who's the better player? I mean, if you're asking 100 people, I would say that nearly 100 people would probably say Jacob Ramsey.
Yeah, I agree with that. He's a good player. Like, I probably undersold him a little bit on the preview episode that we did, and that I'm not bothered about him and he's not that good. That's not the case at all. I'm not kind of trying to downplay it to kind of cope with the fact that we've lost somebody. He's a good player. I just don't think he's a brilliant player. And we talk a lot about potential. How many games was that you read off there? 140 odd or something? If you've played that level of men's football for Villa in Europe, finishing 7th, 4th and 6th, surely we're past the point of potential. This is just who you are now. And if that's a steady Premier League player that's going to contribute to a squad, that's great. But Eddie Howe will want to turn this into a player who is aiming for double digits goals and assists. And he can be that. I just don't know whether he's got that in him, to be honest.
Well, obviously, Emery's come in and you guys are qualified for Europe several times under here. I mean, how big of a role did Ramsey play in the last few campaigns, which has seen you guys get the Champions League and do quite well, and obviously qualify again for the Europa League this time around?
I think the most notable one is the Conference League qualifying season. So Emery's first spell, he took over in the November. Villa were crap under Gerrard, as everyone probably remembers. Emery turns us around with exactly the same squad, gets them ticking. And there was a period, and I don't have it in front of me, where Villa were very strong at the end of that season. It felt like we had to win most weeks to get into the top 7, and we did. And Ramsey had a period of, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 goals in the final 3 or 4 games, and he just hit a nice little purple patch, and that absolutely helped us fire up into 7th place. So I don't want to say Jacob Ramsey got us into Europe, but he certainly helped scoring those couple of goals in that period. And I'm pretty sure he then struggled with injury problems the season after and didn't feature that much. And that was in the season that we were in the Conference League and finished 4th to get into the Champions League. And he's just gone through these spells of, take your chance. Like, you're getting minutes, you're getting on the pitch. Unai Emery clearly rates you. Last summer, he was deemed as like a non-negotiable. He wants to keep him. This season, it's obviously been different for whatever reason, whether it's financial, whether it's that he didn't think the contract being offered was suitable, whether he was promised more minutes at Newcastle. Whatever reasons, Ramsey now feels like he wants to go. Emery's happy to let him go, because if he wasn't, he'd still be at Villa. And that's different than it was 12 months prior. But the guy that sits next to me at the Villa, if he doesn't start and he gets off the bench, it's like, show us what you've got. Like, we know you're talented, but give us something. And you get chance after chance after chance, and you don't really contribute, and you don't really feel like you're part of what Villa is good. You're not part of what makes Villa good. So I feel like it got to a stage where there's only so many times you're given that chance and you're given that opportunity. And if you don't grasp it, you become sellable. because 12 months prior he wasn't. So what changed?
It sounds a lot like Joe Willock. Had
Right,
we
okay.
scrapped the name and we removed the thumbnail and we just play that clip that you've just said there, that last little bit, people would be thinking you might be talking about Joe Willock, a man of huge potential, who Newcastle signed for big money from Arsenal. I mean, they literally spent transfer budget on him to the point where the club, our listeners and viewers will remember, released a statement saying, we've spent everything, so here we go, which was a very bizarre thing to be doing. But anyway, and he hasn't ever lived up to his ability. He's such a talented player, but 159 appearances in the Premier League, 15 goals, 9 assists. Again, the return is quite similar. And many people feel like he actually is the man who will make way for Jacob Ramsey. Others feel it's a Sean Longstaff replacement. The positions don't quite add up. And we'll talk about his positional strengths in a moment. But for me, certainly, I'm looking at him and thinking he's either going to be the Joe Willock we've got in our squad, who has flashes of brilliance, but then picks up injuries, and then when he's fit, doesn't really take the chances. I mean, towards the end of last season, he placed Joe Linton in the starting 11 because Big Joe was injured, and he was absent. There was just nothing there. And a bit like what you were saying, it was like, take your chance, take your opportunity, because Joe Linton will be back next season. This is your moment, and it didn't happen. Or is Jacob Ramsey going to be what Joe Willock can be with that ability? And fingers crossed it is the latter. Just on Emery's view on him, I mean, if everything had been an ideal world, and let's say, for example, there was a strong suggestion he was going to sign a contract, have Villa sold him because of the lack of time on his deal, because he's not in Emery's plans, because Ram suggested he wants to go, because of the price tag? I'm just trying to understand like the reasons behind the sale, and if there was another scenario, do you think Villa would have taken that, i.e. where they don't maybe need to sell to get pure profit, or they can get him to sign a new deal and he stays?
I mean, we're trying to still speculate the same reasons, to be honest. Our end, it is a little bit of a head scratcher of, and I mean this in the most respectful way to a Newcastle audience here, but why Newcastle? Like, you're a Villa fan, right? We're in Europe still. Like, I know it's not the Champions League, but to me, as a Villa fan, trying to win the Europa League is still something to be worth playing for. It's a World Cup year. If you're great with Villa, there's a chance. To me, it's like, why would you want to leave that? So I think initially it was a little bit like, well, you've had a contract offer on the table and you've not signed it, so clearly you don't want to be here then, right? That's kind of how you see those things adding up. But the reaction from John McGeehan and Tara Mings on social media when it was announced of like, you don't know the whole story here, tells me that there's more to it, maybe from a financial perspective, that, okay, maybe Ramsey was offered a new deal, but it was a paltry one. And it was an unfair deal to offer him. And it was, well, he's obviously not going to sign that. So Villa have done their bit. We've offered him a new deal, but if it's not one that he's actually going to be willing to sign because maybe it's a $5,000 pay rise or something silly, he's obviously not going to. Do you know what I mean?
You see, I read those posts and I thought in my head, that's to dig at the financial rules. It never once occurred to me to be going down the path that you've.
I think some people have taken it as, are the Villa players unhappy with Emery's decision? And I don't think it's that at all. Like, this isn't a internal club battle that Villa have made the wrong choice to let Ramsey go to Newcastle. I think it's a massive middle finger to the rules have made us do this. So that, the contract offer might have been there, but if it's a crap contract, Ramsey's well within his rights to seek employment elsewhere, right? For a much bigger and more what he feels is his value. If Villa have said, and I don't know the figures, right? And I guess last time we spoke about this, and I said, Newcastle offered $200,000, and Newcastle fans were like, well, we wouldn't have done that. I was like, no, but just to make a point, right? If he's on $50,000 and Villa say, we'll give you 60, and Newcastle say, we'll give you 100, all right, well, you're going to go to Newcastle then because you are worth more than 60, but because of the financial rules, we can't afford to give you more than 60. And that's put Villa then in a bad position. Okay, well, you've got 2 years left on your deal. You're probably, to Villa, not going to be worth anywhere near 40 million again, because from an on the pitch perspective, you haven't had a season that makes you worth 40 million. So unless you do this year, next summer you're going to have 1 year left. We get 20 for you. That's bad for us. So Villa, I think, are very cutthroat when it comes to contracts, that when you get into this final 2 years of your deal, you're for sale now. If you don't want to sign a new contract, we can't really afford to let you run that deal out. And there's probably a couple of exceptions to that. Someone like a John McGinn, he wants to go to Celtic at some stage. If next year he's got 1 year left on his deal, selling him to Everton for 4 million or something, it isn't worth it. I'd rather let him go on a free. Like, do you know what I mean? But when you're talking 40, Villa have to make a wise decision there, that's money that they can't afford to turn down. So I think it's a combination of all those factors that Villa probably have offered a contract, but it not be a very good one because we can't afford to do that. And the rules are set up in a way that you can't afford to offer a player that your manager wants to keep and has said on record he rates him. We can't afford to offer him a good contract. Okay, well, we'll sell him for 40 million then. Pure profit. That's good for the books. But you also can't spend that money. So what are Villa supposed to do in that situation?
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy.
Just take
isn't
it.
And,
take it,
yeah.
guys. Like, you just deal with it. There's nothing you can do about it.
I mean, it's slightly different, isn't it, to what Newcastle had to go through, and with Elliot Anderson and selling him to Nottingham Forest. Newcastle didn't want to sell him. He didn't want to go, but they had to sell him to avoid any penalties when it comes to the finance. And I mean, he's gone on strength to strength at Forest.
Yeah, good player.
The first game of the season, absolutely brilliant, and he's an absolute joy to watch. And it hurts. It really does hurt when we see him doing so well. We're so happy for the lad, but he should have been doing it in black and white. And he understood why he had to go, and he accepted it. And he's done it so brilliantly. He's just got on with it. But it's slightly different, isn't it, with Ramsey, where, I mean, he's not been forced out because that penalty was coming down the line, has he? So it's slightly different.
Yeah, Villa weren't going to get in trouble if Ramsey stayed. So it's not that level. Last summer when Villa sold Douglas Luiz, that was, if this deal doesn't go through today, you will get a double digits points deduction for the upcoming season. Villa don't finish in Europe, so they had to sell him that day. Ramsey is different in that sense. I've been asked about Grealish going back to Everton. How does that make me feel? You know, Villa fan. He's now not at a super club. Could he have come back to Villa? Now, I'm not going to get into the details of whether I think he should or shouldn't have come back to Villa, but seeing him play for Everton last night against Leeds meant nothing to me. That's just another footballer. Jacob Ramsey being a success with Newcastle, and Newcastle being a competitor to Villa in terms of finishing in the top 6, that would hurt more. Grealish at Everton, he might have scored 10 goals and Everton finished 10th or whatever. I expect Villa to finish higher than that. Ramsey going to Newcastle and scoring 10 goals and you finish 3rd and Villa finish 7th, bad. I'll feel bad about that because that's not how it should be. He should be scoring 10 goals for us and putting us up into 3rd. So it's a different scenario from a personal Villa fan emotional feeling. I don't want him to do well because you're a rival, but also he's a good lad by all accounts. He is a good footballer. If Eddie Howe, who's clearly been after him for a long time, can get something out of him, and in 12 months' time he has got his best season yet in professional football, and he's on the verge of the England squad again, that's good for him. And I've kind of removed the Villa fan bias and as a human to human go fair play, but it will still hurt as a football thing because this shouldn't have happened. This shouldn't be the case. Villa should be in a position, after having been in Europe for 3 years in a row, to say, right, Jacob Ramsey, you want 80 grand? Here you go then. We can give you that. But we're not, we can't do that. And that's a really difficult position to kind of toy with.
Yeah, so frustrating, isn't it? In terms of the player Newcastle United are getting, talk to me about his best attributes. What can we expect from him on the pitch?
Ball carrying is his best attribute, I think. And he's very similar. And again, this is where the kind of positional tussle comes in from a Villa perspective. He's Morgan Rogers, right? But we think Morgan Rogers is better. So they're playing roughly in the same position. You can definitely have both in the side, as Villa did at times last season, but they kind of want to occupy the same spaces. So if you could only pick one, I'm picking Rogers anyway. And I think most would. Would you pick Rogers over Ramsey, I'm sure?
Yeah, I would. I think Rogers
I think that's
the best player currently.
I think that's a pretty common thing. If Rogers left Villa, he'd go for more than 40 million. So if you want to just put it on a financial level, he's better in that sense. But any kind of clips that you watch of him, any highlights reels, and I know they're not the best way to judge players, they'll mostly feature Ramsey picking up the ball, sometimes from his own half, and driving forward, maybe as far as the penalty area. And that's what you'll see from him. That's what he wants to do. get in those spaces, pick up the ball, carry it forward, powerful, with the kind of intent of, I'm going to get forward here. He's not kind of meandering around and just dribbling for the sake of it. It's get my head down and run in one direction. And that is certainly his biggest strength. He will get you from here to here in a split second. And I think there's other players in the Newcastle side that will do that as well. So I think he'll fit in well from that perspective of, if we can sit in here and kind of soak up some pressure, when we do turn over the ball, Ramsey's gone, Gordon's gone, Alanga's gone. We're now halfway up the pitch, different scenario, and whoever is playing up front for you will hopefully be there to benefit from those players kind of surging forward. So I think he fits in from that perspective. Decent finish on him as well. He doesn't score many, but the goals catalogue he has, there's some good goals in there with both feet as well. He is right-footed and he'll dribble the ball with his right foot, but a couple of left-footed finishes in there as well, and a real kind of powerful strike on him. But, like any player, the YouTube highlights doesn't do the justice of, or they don't show, the dribble where he gets easily dispossessed or pushed off the ball, or the cut inside and the blazing it over the bar. But that's every footballer going right.
What's the weakness? What's the one thing you would tell him to improve, or that you think anyhow we'll be looking at and thinking, right, that's where my main focus is going?
There's probably two, and one isn't one that can necessarily be improved, but it's his availability and his fitness. That would be a weakness, I guess, that he isn't often available when you want him to be. He's had these injury niggles over the last 2 years, probably. He'll get back in the team maybe 3 or 4 weeks, and then he's out again. And that kind of unavailability is frustrating, because, again, you want to give him that opportunity to show us what you've got, and then that ankle's playing up again, and I'm out of the team again. I think from a footballing perspective, probably being nitpicky, but like decision making, maybe. If you're going to get your head down and dribble on the ball for 30 yards, are you going to make the right decision when you get on the edge of the area? Is it to cut in and try and bend one in into the far corner, or is there a teammate available? And that probably, again, comes with a certain lack of experience. If you're in those positions more often and you're playing for a team that's scoring lots of goals, you'll probably make the right decision more often than not. But I'm only going to say this to emphasise the point of a not great decision making. It's a bit, the running sometimes is a bit kind of headless chicken. And I really don't mean that in a nasty way, but it's, I've got the ball, I'm going. Oh, where now? What? Do you know what I mean? Sometimes you need that killer instinct, and I think that'll come. And that's me being really harsh.
Well, I'm looking at his injury records, and last season he missed 10 games. Season before he missed 36 games, and the season before that he missed 4 games. So that season where he missed the majority of games,
it was after the England under-21 summer, where he had the worst one. I think he did his ankle in the off summer, came back, and then basically missed the whole season.
Yeah. So he did a metatarsal fracture, and then there was another toe injury towards the end of the campaign, which ruled him out from March to June. So he was out for 120 days at that point. But part of me thinks, toe injuries.
It's not muscle injuries. It's not like a persistent hamstring that's going to keep coming back, but it's still a little bit of a worry.
Well, yeah. However, this injury that kept him out for 9 games last season was a hamstring injury, and that is obviously one of those injuries which can either be nothing or something on a regular basis. But I'm going to get the rest of his stats up here. Once he returned from that injury, he looked like he came back at the turn of the year. Was he all good to go?
As far as I can remember, I don't really remember a period of he's back in the team, but he doesn't look fit. So, not a massively long answer here because I can't really remember. But do you know what I mean?
You were just filling time, Dan, until I got the stats up. So, he missed the 3-0 defeat to Newcastle away, and then he did return.
What scarf was he wearing that day? Was he wearing black and white already?
Half and half. 30th of December he returned, and then he featured in all the games up until he got an indirect card suspension. So what did he do against Bournemouth? Did he get a double yellow or something? Anyway,
he got sent off. Yeah.
So he did feature all the way up till the penultimate game of the season. Then he was back in that game against Manchester United. So, hopefully the hamstring injury was just for those 10 games, and it's past him.
Yeah, I wouldn't say there was anything in there that you've signed a croc and he's always going to be on the injury table. But there is a little bit of that. is he going to be available? Newcastle are going to want to play 50 plus games. How many of those is he actually going to feature in? How many does he start? I suppose that I know that you're going to ask me where he fits in from a Newcastle perspective, but I think that's for you to answer. He'll play off the left for Villa, but I've always thought he could play in a midfield three, on the left side of a midfield three. I don't know whether that's the place he plays for you as a rotation option for your very good midfield three, or does he just play on the left? Because surely that's Gordon's, no?
Well, this is it. I don't exactly know where he fits in. He's not coming in as a first team starter. Elanga was in and he was going on that right wing because we needed an upgrade. But with Ramsey, I think he's got a lot to do until he can oust either, because it would be Joe Linton that plays out on that space. And that's not a like for like replacement. Joe Linton is the brute force. And then beside him, you've got Tonali, arguably, the best midfielder I've seen in black and white, and Bruno, who is not too far behind him, very technically gifted players. On the left wing, Barnes has had a tremendous last 6 months. Gordon looks fit and energized at the moment playing up top, but it'll be them two going for that. I would imagine, first and foremost, you would probably battle with Gordon and Barnes for the spot. And yes, the left of a midfield three would probably be the next in line, but I struggle to see how it would make sense to remove Joe Linton, the strength, for Ramsey, who hasn't got that. Now, obviously, certain games dictate what you do. You don't always need that brute force in the middle. But for me, Joe Linton is absolutely key. But that is the question, Dan, that has come back to me the most when I've reached out to people on social media and said, we're recording with Dan. Any questions about Jacob Ramsey, get them in. And they've all come back about where he would fit in, because there is some talk that actually he is either going to play as an 8 or potentially as a 10 should Eddie Howe want to switch his formation up, which I think he does, because it's been very much that midfield three, 2 wingers and 1 man up top. And I think he would like to have those options where he can play in number 10. How would Ramsey do in that situation, do you think?
Well, I kind of puffed my cheeks out then for those listening, thinking, number 10, I'm not so sure. But then when he's playing off the left for Villa. He's not a left winger that he's going to kind of bomb up and down the touchline. So he's starting off the left and drifting inside to where a number 10 operates, I guess. So can he do it? Absolutely. But he's more a player that he's going to want to pick up the ball in the centre circle, turn around and run, as opposed to kind of float behind a striker and pick passes through. He's not going to unlock a defence with a slide rule pass. Like, he's got it in his locker to play some nice passes, but he's a runner. He's an athlete as much as anything. He wants to get the ball and drag everybody forward. So if you're playing a striker and he's going to sit behind him, I don't see him working in that role particularly as a kind of somebody to ping passes around, little 1-2s or whatever. Getting you up the pitch from midfield to attack kind of makes sense, I guess. I think most likely it is going to be off the left. I think he's a very different player to Barnes, because I associate Barnes with more as a winger who's going to go up and down and put balls in and whatnot and cut inside. So maybe it's a versatility option to back up to, you've got Gordon and then Barnes or Ramsey, depending on the opposition. He doesn't start in the midfield three. If you're playing, when you play Liverpool in a couple of weeks or next week or whenever that is, your best midfield three does not include Jacob Ramsey. And this is where the thing for has he gone there for more promised minutes? I actually think he would play more at Villa, especially with the European commitments. I think Jacob Ramsey definitely starts in the Europa League. Now, Newcastle aren't going to rotate their team heavily for the Champions League because it's the Champions League. So it's not like even in Europe, Ramsey will get a run out in a midfield three there. So if you're in the Conference League, I'll be going, well, Ramsey will start in midfield in the Conference League and he'll have that whole campaign to show you what he can do. So I think there is that versatility there that he's going to play off the left. He could play in a midfield three. But again, that's not a position that it's like, we know he's done that because he's done it for 5 seasons. He's never really played in the midfield three for Villa. I just think he has the attributes that he probably could do that. That doesn't necessarily mean that he will, though.
It is one of those where I am scratching my head thinking, how does he fit him? People are, as I've said, saying he's a replacement for Sean Longstaff, but he's not really. If anything,
this was that Villa could spend, if this was that Villa could spend, I would almost put this down to like the Forest stuff last year with Anderson and Vlachodimos or whatever. We'll give you Ramsey, you give us X. I'd kind of put it down to that as like I don't really know where he fits into Newcastle, but we've helped you and you're going to give us Barnes for 40 million or whatever. So we've kind of helped each other. But because we're not going to buy anybody from you, it's kind of like, well, what have you signed Ramsey for? I don't know where he fits in.
Yeah, I mean, look, Eddie Howe's been a long-term admirer of him, and that's Newcastle's approach to the transfer market. They have long-term targets, and I'm excited because he adds to the depth. He gives you a different option on the pitch. But right here, right now, I don't see where he fits in, and it's interesting you see play more minutes at Villa, and I agree with you, certainly so. I still actually think it leaves Newcastle United needing a replacement for Sean Longstaff, someone who's a bit more defensive minded and actually can sit in the middle and pull
Ramsey
the
ain't gonna do
strings.
that.
Yeah. So if anything, he's probably the replacement for Anis actually. But that being said, tremendous potential on the lad. Thank you to everyone who did send in questions. Like I say, the majority were all about the position. So thank you to Stephen and Banksy and Big Mickey as well. And we've had Dina email in about Mings's quotes upon Ramsey's exit, which we've spoken about. So thank you to everyone who has got in touch. What do you see, Dan, as his level? What can Jacob Ramsey achieve at Newcastle United?
That's a great question. I think from a personal targets point of view, he'll want to be approaching double figures in goal contributions, first and foremost. He's not got anywhere near double goals and assists combined for Villa. Ideally, you would want him to be, for a £40 million signing, getting 10 goals and 10 assists. But I think that would be a stupendous season for him and nothing like he's ever done before. Could he do that? Yeah, maybe. I mean, if Eddie Howe has spotted something in him and he comes in and all of a sudden he's better than Gordon and you completely change the way you play, it's like, okay, didn't foresee that. But if he can get 10 goal contributions in the league, I'm talking about, I think that's a good season for him. I saw a Villa fan, I can't remember who it was. I think it's the last 2 seasons. He's got more yellow cards than goal contributions. He's got 5 yellows and 3 goals, 1 assist or something like that. So clearly kind of output-wise, absolutely room for improvement. For the team, I mean, we're in the same position, right? We always want to be in the Champions League. Is Ramsey going to help you get there? Yeah, maybe. It really is this sounds so stupid for like what to expect from Jacob Ramsey episode, but wait and see a little bit. It's just because I don't know where he's going to fit in and how much he's going to play. If he plays every week, then yeah, I want him to be scoring more goals and getting assists and getting involved and helping you get up the pitch and stuff that we've discussed. But I don't know, come the end of the season, if he's only played like 25 games or something, like, what was the point? Do you know what I mean? I'm being really harsh on him, I feel, but
it's a valid point, most certainly. Penultimate question: does he pass the character test? Because that is something that's so important at Newcastle United. And from the interview I've seen, he does seem like a canny lad. I mean, what's his kind of attitude like? On and off the pitch, and how does he fit into the dressing room?
Yeah, good. I've heard good things about him, and he comes from a good family as well. 3 footballers in the family. Obviously, Aaron Ramsey was at Villa, went to Burnley. I think he's done his ACL possibly, or had done it. Cole Ramsey as well is still at Villa in the youth academy. He's the youngest, and people say he's the best of the 3, but we've seen no evidence of that so far. I think his dad was a boxer. Pretty sure he was, and Jacob did boxing in training and stuff as a kid, so that teaches you a lot of kind of good principles and stuff, as the old cliche goes. So good family, good upbringing, good background, very kind of sport heavy, I guess. I've met him a couple of times very briefly, and he seems down to earth, good, relaxed kind of character, very brummy, obviously, but very well liked in the dressing room. And I think you can tell from the reaction of the Villa fans on Villa players, on social media of him leaving. And some of that, no doubt, will be twinged with the rules are crap and that's why we're annoyed. But a lot of kind of sad emojis from his teammates and, you'll be missed and that kind of stuff. So that's probably the best barometer of, we know we've lost a good character from the dressing room. And he'll fit right in at Newcastle, I think. If he embraces the city and the area and the connection that the club has with that, which I'm sure he will, then I think you'll love him.
Yeah, well, the fan bases aren't too dissimilar, are they? So it's kind of moving from one club to another with a fan base that everything is about the football club, and so hopefully he fits right in. With a World Cup, as well, he'll be wanting to make the most of the opportunities that come his way. To sign off, then, Dan, just briefly kind of sum up everything that we spoke about, what are Newcastle United getting then in Jacob Ramsey, and what are you expecting over the next 12 months or so?
Okay, so Newcastle are signing a player that still is talked about with having potential at 24 and lots of games under his belt, but a player that can be good for the here and now as well. It just needs, maybe it is a change of scenery will help, a different environment, different manager, different teammates. Maybe, I'm not suggesting this at all because he's not a character that's lazy, but a bit of a kick up the backside that you're at a crossroads in your career now. It's a new club. It's a World Cup year. It's now on me to go out and show people what I'm capable of. I think he'll play off the left, rotating with the options you currently have, but also could be deployed in a midfield three because he has those attributes to pick up the ball, turn and move. And from a personal perspective, he's going to want to be reaching double figures in goal contributions. And if he can do that, help push Newcastle United to the last stages of the Champions League, maybe win a trophy for back-to-back seasons, like he'll want to do those things because he wanted to do them at Villa. He's now not going to have that opportunity to lift silverware with his boyhood club, but if he can come and do it with you, then that's kind of the next best thing, I guess. So hopefully he settles in relatively quickly. It's going to be weird from a Villa fan perspective that we're not going to see him play for you against us at Villa Park now till next season, because that game's obviously already out of the way. So it's going to be a long time till we get the Ramsey homecoming. So we'll see what kind of situation he's in by then. But you've got a good player, it's somebody that you're going to like, but there's still going to be enough improvement to be like, okay, that was worth 40 million, and we're like really buzzing with the signing. It might just become, he's a good squad player and we like him, but he hasn't kind of set the world alight. It depends which way it's going to go.
Well, fingers crossed he proves to be worth every single penny. Dan, thank you very much for providing the insight into Jacob Ramsey. To you guys watching and listening, do get in to the comments to let us know your thoughts on anything we've discussed in this episode. Do make sure you click the link in the podcast description box to take advantage of your exclusive discounted offer on your NORD VPN plan. And remember, no risk with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Support the podcast and keep yourself secure while browsing your public Wi-Fi on a bus, train, cafe, wherever you are. You have that added extra element of security. And for myself, I will see you later this week.